Alderman, I think we're going to go ahead and get started here. So without further ado, I want to introduce Alderman Brian Hopkins.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We're really delighted and honored to have our guests today on the panel. Two good friends of mine that actually go back years and predate my involvement in city government, Sheriff Tom Dart and also Conn, who's a familiar name to many of you. Grew up in my old neighborhood of Streeterville, and congratulations are in order to him because he recently passed his training and is now a sworn law enforcement officer. So congratulations, Ro. We know you're going to do a great job upholding your oath to protect and serve. This is one of a series of informative webinars that my office has conducted over the months recently when the crime issue has really risen to the top on everyone's mind. It is something that we must address. We must do it unflinchingly, and we must do it honestly, and we must deal in facts. There's really no other way to do it surrounding an issue where there's so much emotion and so many things that cloud people's judgment when you talk about crime and when you talk about people who either have been victims themselves or unfortunately just about everyone that I talk to knows someone who was recently victimized. And the crime of carjacking and armed robbery and the numbers that we're seeing right now are just unprecedented. It touches all of us, even if you haven't been personally affected by it. It affects your sense of safety because of the growing awareness of what's happening. I mentioned that we all need to concentrate on facts. That helps inform a logical and rational approach to dealing with potential policy solutions. But even dealing with facts, we interpret them different. So I just want to throw something out here. And I know it's going to be interpreted in a very different way, possibly by even some of the people joining us tonight. One of our good friends that both Tom and Ro know as well, a local attorney named Tom Needham, he just put out some information of a study that he did on social media just a couple of hours ago. And I'm just going to throw these numbers out there and let them speak for themselves. In 2007, the Chicago Police Department affected 221,000 arrests during the course of the calendar year of 07, 221,000 arrests, all causes, all things. The most recent year pre-pandemic, 2019, that figure dropped to 90,000 arrests for the entire year, all causes, all crimes. The year that we just completed, calendar year 2021, 37,000 arrests in one calendar year. So we went in a generation from 221,000 arrests down to 37,000 arrests. Now you can interpret that in a variety of different ways, but what you can't do is deny that the conditions have changed dramatically. The conditions of society, the conditions within the profession of law enforcement, and the conditions within the judicial system. They've changed due to a variety of factors, but some of them are specific policy decisions made by people like me in the legislative branch of government. Some of them seem to work and some don't, and that's what this conversation is all about. So by the end of this hour discussion, I think you'll have a better picture of what we're doing in a specific response to just one area of crime that has, without any question, increased dramatically in recent years, recent months, and that is the crime of carjacking. So some of the responses are focused and targeted. I believe that the Carjacking Task Force has had some significant success, even in the early stages. We're going to talk a little bit about that tonight, and hopefully we'll also shed some light on some directions that we can go in the future to try and address this problem. So with that, I'm pleased to turn it over to Cook County Sheriff Tom Dart.
Thank you so much, Brian, and thank you for inviting me here tonight. We have, as you mentioned, we've known each other forever, and one of the reasons we have been friends for so long is what you mentioned earlier, which is you thrive on facts, I thrive on facts and data. Neither one of us have ever been into throwing out bromides to people to make people feel good. It's like, no, let's figure out the facts are so that we can address them. And so whether it's this issue, the retail theft explosion that is going on all around us here, or it's the gun crimes, we're intimately involved with those issues. And so I'm not going to get off track here, but I do want the folks that are listening here today that we are actively engaged. The Sheriff's Office is actively engaged, both on its own and partnering with the Chicago Police Department, State Police, and numerous other entities, including the FBI, on all of these different issues. We have some unique approaches that we're doing with guns, some unique approaches we're doing with retail theft as well. But when it comes to the carjacking in particular, we brought together a lot of really smart people, a lot of people with law enforcement backgrounds, some without, to come together and try to figure out what can we do here. But it really started with what Brian referenced, which was coming up with data. And the data was sort of scattered about. We brought all that together. And by bringing that together, it's given us some ideas of places to go and how to approach this. And so, as you mentioned, Brian, there is no one in this city right now who is not at this point of complete frustration, anger, resignation, all the rest over the issue of crime. And the numbers you quoted from Tom, I've known Tom for years. His numbers usually are spot on. It would track. I mean, when I first became sheriff in 2006, we had about 11,000 people in the jail on an average day. We average now about 5,700 people, and that's pre-pandemic. 5,600 pre-pandemic. We're actually a little bit more than pre-pandemic now. So when you talk about the arrests have gone down dramatically, the people in custody have gone down dramatically, it matches that. So that makes sense. So these issues require, though, people to be not only very serious, but have like thoughtful plans. And just throwing things at, numbers and resources doesn't make sense. And so whether, once again, dealing with guns, dealing with the retail theft issue, or carjacking, our approach has been to bring the numbers together and then coming up with a strategy. I have people from my office who are going to talk at length about the details. As you mentioned, Roe has been someone who actually is from the neighborhood and has lived here all his life. He took this on when he first came into our office, and he and the individuals that he works with within our office, but then our partners in the Chicago Police Department, the state police, the FBI, collectively have been working around the clock on this issue. And once again, no solace to anybody, but this issue is a national issue. It is going on everywhere. And so we're seeing it in virtually every single major city. It has gone up a lot. And there's people who have sit there and said, okay, well, let's get the smart minds, the scientists, the professors together and figure out why this has occurred. That's all across the board too, folks. I wish they collectively could come up with this is the exact reason. There's some reasons that are consistently coming up in the studies and talking about particularly the percentage of the carjackings, which Roe referenced, that are being committed by juveniles, and about why juveniles are more engaged in this now than they had been before. And so there's some theories on that. But by and large, all throughout the country, people are struggling with this specific issue and how to approach it. Our approach, as I said, I'm not going to cut into it, but our approach is one that is being driven by the numbers and by partnering up with people. And though things look bad, and they are bad, we've made some progress. And the progress that we talk about here, that is a good sign, but doesn't mean in any way that we are where we want to be. We're recovering double the amount of cars that we used to be recovered from a year ago. We're recovering them in about half the time it took to recover them a year or so ago. And those are major things, not just because someone got their car back. No, recovering cars quickly do two things. One, the car cannot be used in another crime, which is very, very significant, obviously. But the other part is, I used to be a prosecutor years ago, and I could tell you there's different cases that are more difficult than others. This one's particularly difficult because to get carjacking charges, you have to have someone identifying that person was the one that had the gun, that's the person that took my car. With masks on and all the rest of it is inherently difficult. And the longer the car is missing, the more likely it is that the person who did the carjacking is not in the car when it is finally pulled over, when it is taken and confiscated. So that is really significant to narrow this time that the car's gone, and we've been doing that, and it's been effective. But we have a long way to go. And as I said, I wish I could give you more solace here and say, listen, this is all behind us. It's not. It's not, and we got a lot of work to do, but it's not going to change if we are making things up, if we're glossing over and say everything looks great. No. Serious people like Alderman Hopkins and others have been obsessed with this issue, and we're going to get progress. It's going to be occurring, but it's going to take a little bit of time. I'm sitting right now in our office, sheriff's office that we opened up in River North. We're at 500 North Clark. We're going to be a full service office here. We are a full service office here, and it's to be here not just for a week or two. We're here forever. And we're here to be a regular entity that's going to work in this community, have regular beats going through the community, so you can see more and more of our squad cars here. And we want to interact more and more with yourselves on whatever your issues may be. And so we are in here full time, and we are not going to go away. So we're here for the long haul, and we are excited to be working with you, and we're happy to do this presentation today, and we will be there for you. Thank you so much. And I'm going to turn it over now to Conn, who's from my office, who will go into more detail. Thank you.
And thank you, Sheriff. I want to, first of all, again, talk a little bit about why it is that we've chosen to do exactly this this project at this time in terms of vehicular hijacking or carjacking as it's known, but the criminal charge is vehicular hijacking. A year ago, we started the project at the behest of the sheriff to actually begin the process of putting together an analytics project. And I'm going to share that project with you in just a second here. But really what the most important piece of that was to create a pathway through which our office, the Chicago Police Department, the Illinois State Police, and the FBI could all share data. One of the things that I noticed coming from private industry into law enforcement, government law enforcement, is that sometimes these systems aren't talking to each other as much as they should, especially along a specific line, like the specific line of vehicular hijacking. So what we are doing now is, and I'll bring this up for you so that you can see it. Hopefully my screen is going to share here. I believe that is right now, should be. Please let me know if it's not. The most important thing that we can that we can actually do here is, again, communicate. And as you see here, as I run through this with you, you're going to see that this summary page that you're seeing pop up right now this is just one little 1/5 of the summary page. It goes down below, and you can scroll up and scroll down. I just want to show you this for demonstration purposes. If you look at the upper left-hand side here, I'm going to move my cursor around. Incident totals, 3,738 incidents, and that goes back to January 1 of 2020. 3,738 incidents in about 2 years. And we were up, 2021 was up almost 40% on 2020. These are astounding numbers. We had 2,100 incidents in the year 2021. That's an actual incident. That's either attempted vehicular hijacking, or aggravated vehicular hijacking. And I can get into a little bit of the difference of all of those for you a little bit later on. But that means that 2,100 people had people try to steal their cars while they were in them, essentially. This is a heat map that shows where throughout Cook County, where these incidents are occurring. And as you can see, because what we're looking at here are a total of, this is for 2021, you're seeing on the west side, the western suburbs, some of the west side, that's direct west side. It looks like one of Tom Skilling's maps, right? Where you see a storm front coming through. The orange and the deep red are where there are a ton of incidents. Where it's a little, if you look at the north side, where it's a little bit more purple and darker red, like as you head into the northern suburbs there, you see Lincolnwood at the top of the map there. You can see that there are still incidents up there, but there's fewer. If you come into the main part of the city, the central part of the city, you have these. They also move their way along the South Lakefront and then in the south suburbs. And these are areas that are most stricken on the west side and the south side. The suburban areas are the areas that are touching the city. So when we look at this, when we first put this project together and we saw this actual, this map, we were like, wow. I mean, it does tell a story. This is the area that we're talking about right now. This is the near north side. This is the 2nd ward and also the 42nd ward. And this is for 2021. These are all incidents that occurred in and around the 2nd ward. It's a total now of 66 incidents that happened that we can catalog. And all of these, I believe, are vehicular hijackings, not attempted vehicular hijackings, because vehicular hijackings make up, like 90% of our total numbers are actual cars that were stolen. A little less than 10% were attempts that were unsuccessful. And when we say an attempt might be they got you out of the car and they only got a couple blocks before they had to give up the car because they realized the car was undrivable for them or unusable for them. And we'll get into a little bit of that in a second. Here's 2022 numbers. This is a little astounding. We've already had 104. I mean, 2022, I mean, how, we're 19 days into this right now, 20 days into it. This is what we have for the city of Chicago. This is where, and again, it's following pretty much the exact same route that it had been. We have 4 in this area specifically that have occurred. I know in the neighborhood, and again, as the sheriff said, I grew up down here. I have moved back here as an adult later in my life here. People talk about it all the time. It's the one thing that people are concerned about, whether you have friends in the suburbs, you have friends in the city. They say, oh, I don't want to go downtown because I'm afraid I'm going to get carjacked or something else bad is going to happen. I mean, that is a very, very common refrain. And, this is the central nervous system, the central business district for Chicago. If we lose downtown, we lose the entire region. And I don't think we're overstating that because this is where the economy is. And we do not want to find ourselves as a failed state in Chicago, and crime is going to be basically that canary in the coal mine. If we start to see this city fall apart, and it's falling apart from the center out, and there've always been tough neighborhoods in Chicago. As lifelong Chicagoans will know that there are places that have always been plagued by crime. When it starts to hit downtown, that means tourism dollars dry up. Any kind of entertainment dollars dry up from people from Chicago and from the region who don't want to move around. I mean, when you actually have to have cars pulled up on the street and blocking the entrance to Burberry so that people can't go in and steal overnight. I mean, that really says something. It feels desolate, quite honestly. I'm just going to run through these very quickly. These are also things from our dashboard. We share this with other law enforcement. Everybody can see as trends are developing. I would just point on this, there's a lot of information here, but this purple line that on the bottom graph that is moving in this direction, that's the trajectory of vehicular hijacking over the last 2 years. And as you can see, that's a very steep climb. It's an airplane taking off out of O'Hare there, just trying to get to altitude. What our mission is to bring this back down. Now, luckily, we have actually had some success with that. We're down, if you look at this, for the same week, the last week, January 10th to the 17th, we're down 41% over where we were last year for that same week. And then year to date, we're down 28% of where we were in January. I should mention, January was the most active month last year. And a lot of this has to do with the time of day and the amount of sunlight in the day. I know this is kind of an interesting, it's arcane a little bit, but as you'll notice on this particular graph, you see that as the months move, as the sunlight starts to once we get to 12 and 12 hours of sun versus dark, and then throughout the summer, it does get a little better for us. We had a little bit of an outlier. And again, we're looking at near north here. We're looking at just downtown, but that mirrors what the city numbers would be and the suburban numbers would be. June is hot because kids are getting out of school and the juveniles are a major play in this. As the sheriff mentioned, we talk about why juveniles are doing this. A lot of that is driven on social media, and there are challenges essentially on social media for it. There's each one teach one. There are YouTube channels in which kids are taught how to actually carjack cars, and in their peer groups. And people always ask, is this gang related? Well, it is kind of gang related, but not completely gang related. A lot of this stems from kids who join cliques, who get involved in a lot of different things. They get a lot of the people that we have taken into custody for carjacking have also been implicated in retail theft, have been implicated in stealing automobiles from dealerships and stealing automobiles from the street, from parking garages or out in the suburbs, going up curbside or going up onto somebody's driveway and stealing cars. It's really it's driven by and again a lot by peer pressure. It's driven by sort of this clique group of folks that get together and then decide that that's really the best way that they're going to spend their day or make money. What we've done here at the Sheriff's Office, we've put together a vehicle tracking partnership, which is a really, really important thing that Sheriff came to us essentially 2 months ago and said, what is a solution? And our team decided the best solution for the moment was to try to get the manufacturers involved. As the Sheriff pointed out, the faster we get to the car, the better off we're going to be. Manufacturers on every car made after 2015, and most cars actually that are on the road have telematics on board, like OnStar for General Motors or other similar devices, depending on the manufacturer. Once a car is stolen, what we want to do is to be able to call those manufacturers. And this has been going on for a long time. This is one of the ways that we've been tracking cars, for as long as they've been stolen, as long as these telematics have been available on board. You call the manufacturer and you say, hey, General Motors, for example, is particularly good at helping us in this. This Chevrolet Equinox was stolen. We have the victim with us. They'll give you verbal consent for us to track the car. Can you track the car? And then we will find it. And they'll be able to tell us almost turn by turn where that car is, as long as the tracking, the telematics haven't been disabled by the carjackers or the people who stole the car. And it's very effective. We can find them very quickly. And then that saves also the search and chasing, which is become a big social and law enforcement issue of car chases. And as you probably heard, that Chicago doesn't allow officers to chase. Cook County has similar rules. Illinois State Police have their set of rules, but we don't want to be involved in high-speed chases because innocent people could be hurt in those. And only if we know that we have to stop somebody because they've got a gun, or there has been other violence as a result of that car. We're very, very careful about that. So what we are trying to do is put together a system, and we'll get to that in just 1 second, in which the telematics can be activated remotely, even if we don't have the victim, by signing up on our website. If you're an automobile owner, then you can sign up on our website a consent form that allows us to track your car after it has been stolen. I'll get to that in just 1 second. In the meantime, here are standard safety tips. Obviously, always be aware of your surroundings. Cell phones create, they're great for us and they're bad for us in this respect. A lot of people pull over to the side of the road, whatever, they're waiting for somebody to get on their phone. They're not paying attention. They don't have their eyes up in the rearview mirrors. They don't really see exactly what's going on. And so they don't see people approaching them. That's a very, very big part of it. Always keep your doors locked. Don't get boxed in at stop traffic. I remember this from driver's ed, where you stop so that you can see the back tires of the car. You're far enough back from the car when you stop at a red light, stop sign, whatever it happens to be. You never want to be closer to the car than, if you lose sight of those back tires, you're too close. Keep your phone in your pocket. This is very, very important. A little tip that we're offering people: if you have spare cell phones, like old cell phones that you chose not to turn in or throw away, leave those in your car. Leave one, in your center console or something. Because if an individual comes up and tries to carjack you, they say, "Where's your phone?" You point to that, and then you get out of the way. They may want your key fob. Sometimes they don't want your key fob because they'll be able to reprogram the car at a later point. But give them your keys. We always tell people, give up the vehicle. Do not fight for the vehicle. I know there's concealed carry people out there who want to reach for their gun. If they have a gun, they will shoot you, and that is you run that risk. And we don't want to see people get hurt over a piece of property. We understand that this is a terrible act and a very violent act, but it is not worth losing your life or being grievously injured. Now again, call 911. If you do have a child in the car, inform the carjacker. I know how crazy this sounds, but inform the carjacker that there is a child in the car. Based on our research and based on the interviews we do once they are in jail with us, and we do talk to them about tactics and procedures, they don't want to get caught. They don't want to shoot people generally, and they don't want to get caught taking somebody else in the car, because then that's a kidnapping charge. That's a federal charge, and that changes their outcomes completely. So and another little tip here: if they do come up to your car and they point a gun at you, you're going to be looking at the gun. That is a stand. That everybody does that. And while you're looking at the gun, because you want to see that, and that is what your instinct is. If you get a chance to look down, try to figure out what it is that they're wearing. Try to record that. In the era of COVID, you're probably not going to see their face. Going to be wearing masks. You're going to see their eyes, but that's hard to say. What color the eyes are. That'll be one factor, but you're not going to really get a better sense of them. Clothing can be very helpful. Most important piece of clothing that we'll be looking for are the shoes, because when the carjacker leaves, he may be stripping his clothes. He may strip that top layer of clothes and have other clothes underneath. Shoes he will not have different. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. These are the stickers that we are going to be making available. We've already started, the sheriff announced this in December. These stickers are going to be available to put on the rear window of your vehicle or the front window of your vehicle, or both. The front of the sticker is the tracked vehicle sticker. We're doing an awareness program in courts and inside Cook County Jail, actually, to identify what this sticker means for carjackers, because we want people to understand, who might be prone to doing this. And we know that people going to court and people going into our facility at 26th Street, they may be very, very well aware, that we want this out amongst those who would be interested in stealing cars and hijacking cars, that this vehicle is being tracked, and that the people have become proactive about that, and that might be a way to dissuade them. And then the right side there, you see this vehicle is being tracked. That reflects on the inside on the front sticker, so that perhaps while they're driving away, they realize, this vehicle is being tracked. How do you find this? Well, you go to the Google. That's the most important thing to do. You put in Cook County Sheriff.org right there, as it's writing for you. That takes you to the website. And there's a sheriff's picture at the top there. Come over to Community Relations. And then at the bottom of Community Relations, there is Carjacking Tips and Consent Form. Click on that. When you get there, you'll be able to download the consent form. Now, we have it in Spanish and Polish currently. We'll be adding other languages to that as well. But we just started this month, so that's what we were able to get up. All right, the Cook County Sheriff's Office consent to release data. This is the form. This is the blank form right here. You're going to fill it in following these parameters here. Now, what's a really important point here? We've gotten some requests. We've actually had some people ask us about this. Well, are you just going to now track my car if I sign this consent form? No. At the very top of the consent form, it says, in the event that my vehicle has been unlawfully taken, if your car has been stolen, this allows law enforcement to be able to track the car. So you'll be filling out these other forms, obviously, your name, these other blanks here, your name, the manufacturer. So it could be General Motors or Chevrolet or OnStar if it happens to be a GM car, or any of the rest of the manufacturers, Honda, Acura, Mercedes, Ram, Jeep, Dodge, Chrysler, however you want, whatever you've got, fill that in. You have to have your year, your make, your model, and then the VIN number. Super important, super important. So that once the VIN number is how we'll be able to start tracking the car. You sign it, and then we used to require a witness. We no longer require a witness for this. You can just send it to us without a witness part of it. If you go on the site, you'll notice that the forms on the site do not have a witness. If you want to have one, you can. And most importantly, as I end the presentation, we'll take some questions and answer anything that you've got. This primarily for folks in the second ward. This is the Chicago Police Department doing most of the work here. We have aerial assets that the Chicago Police has that we share, that the Sheriff's Department shares. As you'll notice on that helicopter is both of our stars. We fly those missions together, which is one of the reasons that we're involved in this. And we're part of the task force, the Vehicular Hijacking Task Force, with them, along with the FBI and Illinois State Police and Secretary of State's Police, who are excellent. All of our partners are amazing at this. And we're here to keep you safe. So that is it's the end of this presentation. I hope there perhaps will be a lot more questions to deal with here, but Steve, I'll hand it back to you.
Thanks so much, Ro. Really appreciate that. Yeah, we have been taking a lot of emails leading up to tonight at the ward office here. So I'm going to do my best to kind of summarize a few of the questions that came in. The most popular questions had to do with, how are these cars being tracked? So I think the sticker idea that you're talking about here is really something interesting and new. One question we keep getting though is there a certain type of vehicle that seems to be standing out as the most stolen, or is there a certain type of car? I think a lot of people are, obviously worried about getting carjacked, and they're worried about the kind of car that they have. Sometimes you see carjackings are brand new cars or kind of luxury cars, but is there a certain type of model or anything that stands out in your data?
Well, it's all over the place, quite honestly. We have the most stolen car in Chicago and Cook County is the Toyota Camry. And that's because it's the most common car. So it really depends on what folks are looking for. I think it's fair for us to assume that in the second ward, there are going to be carjackers coming down here looking for specific vehicles. So there will be vehicles of value or vehicles of speed. The most important thing for these guys, men and women, there are some women who are carjackers. They're looking to outrun the police once they have the car, and they want to go fast. And sometimes part of it is also showing off, going back to the neighborhood and saying, "Hey, look what I got." And so if it's loud and fast, and that's where a lot of the Chrysler products, Chrysler, Dodge, Ram, Jeep Cherokees, with the big engines, the Hemi engines in them that have, they're close to 800 horsepower. They're very, very, very loud. Those are really a preferred item, amongst a certain, sort of subculture within the carjacking community. Those are primary vehicles. The SRTs, the Trackhawks, the Red Eyes, and people who have those vehicles know what those are. But we do see when high-end luxury imports in the second ward, I look at all of the data from all of Chicago, and as you look at the 42nd ward, the second ward, and then 19th ward, you're seeing Range Rovers, Audis, BMWs being taken because of their speed and some residual value to them. Not that all of these cars are being stolen to be sold, but many of them are. And then many of them are taken to shops throughout Chicago that have illegal activities going on in them, where they're revinning them, they're retitling them in other states, and then trying to sell them.
Okay, thanks. And also I want to touch on that heat map that you showed. That was pretty interesting. You look at the heat map, and the second ward here, we're kind of in three big sections. And the second ward, we have kind of the east side of our ward, the west side of our ward, and up in the north near Lincoln Park. And I saw that there was a real big cluster right over Westtown. And we've done a vehicular hijacking webinar already on Westtown strategies. But I know a lot of people in Westtown have been dealing with this. And I see that when you put up the 2022 numbers, there was a bit of a cluster up in Wicker Park where we had been having a lot of those issues.
Right.
And we work directly with the police commander up there to get extra patrols. The alderman has asked for extra overnight patrols. Do you think that it's safe to say that some of this can be predictable? Is this data leading to strategies where it looks like we can kind of guess
Yes.
where some of this might happen?
Yeah, that's the reason that we actually put this together in the first place, is to create predictive analytics to the best that we can in terms of trends. One of the things that we found the most interesting was we found that the hottest night of the week for carjacking was Tuesdays. And I think it was because the guys who were doing this, and again, there's a lot of organization to the carjacking world. This is not just random people. There are certainly cases of that, but that's really not the dominant numbers here. The big numbers are they're created by people who do this every day or do this multiple times a week. And so you're talking about the 12th and the 14th police districts, which have been plagued, I would say in the last 6 months, there's been a sea change shift to those areas. And one of the reasons that we think that we're finding that is that, again, those are targeted vehicles. You may have people again, this is a really important thing to think about. When you look at that heat map is a little hard because it's just like a big sort of like, smush of colors, right? But a lot of the vehicular hijackings happen literally within a mile, under a mile, generally about a half a mile away from egress points, which would be 290, 9094, Lakeshore Drive. That's where a lot of things happen because they want to be able to get out of if they're going to move it out of that neighborhood, especially, I mean, there are carjackers who carjack and then stay in their own neighborhood. But for people who are living in this ward specifically, the closer you are to 9094 or one of the streets that accesses it, or Lakeshore Drive, there's more of a likelihood there.
Yeah, and one thing here at the ward office, we do talk with a lot of victims, and they kind of recant for us what they went through and what the scenario was. And you're right in that a lot of these situations happen very close to egress points. One thing I saw in your data, you were showing incidents that happened in 2022. In our weekly newsletter, we try to put arrest information for vehicular hijackings. We do get the reports from the police department when an arrest is made, and we actually have seen some victims identify their attacker through some of these arrest information being put out there. So we do our best to try to show how many arrests are being made. There was one incident that you saw for 2022 on your map. It was at Noble and Division. And what was interesting was that the arrest was made pretty soon after that incident because they were able to track the car. And again, Alderman Hopkins puts a lot of pod cameras and license plate reading cameras, but they're all over the city and you're able to kind of follow the vehicle.
I was out that night, Steve. We were on mission that night for that particular incident, and we were there for the arrest. And we were there as part of the tracking as well. We had initiated a tracking through the manufacturer that I believe it was a BMW. We had initiated tracking on that car, but we actually were aided by, as you point out, the license plate readers. We were able to start to geolocate them through where they were hitting as they were heading west into the sort of the central west side of Chicago, and that's where our teams and the district teams converged on them, and also some of the suburban teams that ride with us on these missions were there on the scene as well.
That's great. Well, I'm glad that you're out there, and I'm glad that the task force is happening. Can you go over who is on the task force again for everybody, just so they can understand how much coordination is really happening on certain nights here?
So it's Chicago Police Department is, the lion's share of all of this. We do the data analytics, and we send anywhere from 3 to 6 teams out with them, 2-man cars, in addition to the number of cars that Chicago sends out, which is a significant number. And then FBI is out there. They actually have cars on the street as well. They're coming to especially if something, incredibly violent occurs, they're on the scene, because that, federal charges are always a possibility for carjacking. There are ways to federally charge that crime. So they're a big part of it. We have the helicopters that are in the air. We get other federal agencies put their helicopters up with us. They have incredible technology on board, and they're able to track. The Illinois State Police, amazing work that they do. They're great on the surface streets. They also have a fixed wing plane that joins us on these missions, and they have a really great suite of surveillance equipment on those that allows us to track those vehicles. So when these guys do get loose, they steal the car and they get loose, they think that they're completely, invulnerable at that point. There may be a helicopter watching them and waiting for them to end up at a traffic area, and then we're ready to go in, coalesce, and pounce. We've been incredible. I cannot tell you how proud our guys have been to serve alongside of the Chicago Police Department's Vehicular Hijacking Task Force. Those guys are amazing at what they do.
And, we did get a lot of questions from residents in River North. You could see from that heat map again that you put up that River North had a lot of incidents, even some in Streeterville and near North. Your new location at 500 North Clark, is that going to be a place where the task force sometimes comes together? Is that kind of a data point where you can all meet?
Well, this is a place where we're going to be doing our research out of. This team that's behind me right now is our regular team of, and Sheriff has dedicated a lot of resources to this. We have officers that do data analytics. We've got investigators who are in the jail doing interviews with people who've been arrested on this, so that we can get a sense. Again, going back to the idea of the predictive analytics, we have a series of other intelligence officers who are building cases along with detectives, and again, we're working with the Cook County State Attorney's Office, the U.S. Attorney's Office, and Chicago Police. All part of the same thing. And yes, I mean, what we'll have down here is we have a meeting space, for all of the individuals to be a part of. Generally, that's done on city, like the initial roll calls and all that for the hijacking task force are all done, on Chicago property, if you will, Chicago police property. But primarily, what we do, we're in assistance with them, and we're also continuing to do other pieces, as the sheriff pointed out. We're here to stay, and we're as interested in retail theft as we are in vehicular hijacking, and we'll have some announcements coming up about that.
Thank you. One question we just got in the webinar here is Tesla going to be part of the system that you talked about, the car tracking? Is that something that's an option with Tesla vehicles?
Well, I'll tell you, it's interesting that we get that question because of the 2,100 vehicles stolen and almost 3,800 vehicles stolen in the last 2 years, we have no Teslas. And there's a couple reasons for that. One, because those cars are automatically tracked. The owner of those cars gets an app where they see where their car is at all times. One of the things that we run into with the other, and I would say to people who are watching us right now, and I know we've got hundreds of people on this because of the interest in it. I would say that one of the most important things is that when you are purchasing a car, if you haven't already purchased a car, make sure that you are paying whatever that extra is, maybe $19 a month, for the car to be tracked, so that we can immediately call whoever the manufacturer is and say, this car is, the person has already signed up for the tracking and the vehicle is being tracked, and that makes it so much easier. Tesla also is an interesting test case because we have found, and again, in speaking to hijackers who are actually very forthcoming with us at times about what the tactics are. They tend to avoid electric cars because electric cars have a different driving mechanisms, and especially with the juveniles, not really familiar with it. So they're harder to get away. Stick shifts we found to be the exact same thing. If you want to go really old school, you got real modern and then real old school. Stick shifts are very hard to steal as well.
And interestingly enough, we've been getting a few different chat suggestions for topics throughout the meeting here. There's a human element here as well. And I think Sheriff Dart touched on this, Alderman Hopkins did as well, where on one side, if you're a victim, you're traumatized, you live with it. It's something where we've been talking with NAMI about some trainings and some meetings with victims through the 14th District Police. At the same time, when you're making these arrests, when police are talking with the people who are being accused or suspects at the time, some of them being juveniles, what is that like on that level when you see a youth, somebody involved in this? Are you seeing, are they upset that they got caught? Are they, or is it something where they feel bad about it? Or is it something where you think that they really don't understand the consequences? Maybe there's something a little deeper going on where, because of, like you said, the peer pressure, doing this in groups.
Yeah.
That they're
it's across the board. It's across the board. I can say at the end of an incident, when someone's being taken into custody, on the scene, everyone's got a lot of adrenaline because those cars are moving fast, and and part of it, especially for the juveniles, is a game, to try to get away. Some of the adults are a little bit more organized. I mean, one of the things I would say, and I'll get back to answering your question, this is very, very important for the identification of the actual offender here, is that these guys work in teams. Generally, a carjacker very rarely just walks up on from the street and carjacks a car and takes off. Generally, they're working with other people, and that those other people are also in a vehicle. That's something else I would point out too, is that once the car takes off, if you see another car take off behind it, try to remember what that car is. Either look at the license plate, know the color, the make of the car. That's really important because that's the chase car. And that chase car is then going to meet back up a couple blocks away or a couple miles away or within a few minutes, and they may switch drivers. Because then if that car gets pulled over and then you do a lineup with the victim and say, was this the guy? Because we pulled him out of your car. It's not necessarily the same person. And that's part of the sophistication that these young men and women have in terms of committing this crime. They're aware of they have tactics. This is not a, they haven't thought this, they have not thought this out. And I think a lot of the people who do this are people who, this is how they make their money. So this is their job.
Yeah, Ro, you earlier provided some data about the number of carjacking incidents that begin with the offender approaching on foot versus the offender approaching in vehicles.
Mhm.
And I was surprised at the percentage of people on foot, because that is not the case in my ward. That is not the case on the north side. It's one of the differences. You mentioned a number of unique elements that we're dealing with in the area that I represent. And that's certainly one. Nearly all the carjacking incidents that we're aware of, the offenders are in at least one, if not two vehicles. So you're exactly right about that. The other thing that we hear, and I talk to more victims that I care to recall who've experienced this in the last couple of years. And the one thing that they say all have in common, at some point during the description, they tell me it happened so fast. It was the blink of an eye. It's that quick. And whether you're on your phone or not, even if you're trying to take the reasonably good advice of being aware of your surroundings, when you're approached by carjackers in a vehicle, they're out of the car and immediately surrounding you before you can really react. It happens that fast. They know a carjacking is about to happen. You don't know. So the element of surprise works in their favor. And it also speaks to the admonition that you provided earlier about keeping your own safety first and foremost in an incident like that. You can't be a hero. You can't be a vigilante, even if you have a concealed carry license or you're someone who thinks you can fight back. It just doesn't really go down that way in the real world, at least not in the north side. And that's something that does linger in the people that have experienced this. As you mentioned, it is a violent act, even if you're not physically injured. The way these events transpire really does leave an emotional scar, and it leaves your sense of safety, just violated. So, we just try to urge people, if you find yourself in that unfortunate position, be smart, get out of it as quickly as you can, turn over your phone, turn over your keys, get away from the situation. And the fact that it does happen with people approaching in vehicles also is part of the advice that we give, especially to the areas of my ward that have alleys. If you feel you're being followed by another vehicle, when you enter your alley, don't go to your garage, go around the block. As you also mentioned in your advice, don't have your keys in your hand as you're walking down the sidewalk if your car's parked on the street somewhere. Because the carjackers who are sort of just patrolling the neighborhood, they're looking for someone near a car. They don't want to follow someone and waste time to someone's just walking to the corner. They want to know that their potential victim is near the vehicle that they own and the keys are there. That's what they want. So if you're standing in front of your vehicle with your keys in your hand, you're making yourself a target. Same thing is true with the four-way flashers. We've heard that time and time again. Somebody sits in their vehicle, they turn on the four-way flashers. That's like a beacon to someone looking for a carjacking opportunity. They know the engine's running. They know the keys are in it. All they have to do is show you the gun to get you to leave, and there's their next victim. So these are just some practical things that we try to let people know that goes a little bit beyond just the standard be aware of your surroundings. These are sort of the commonalities with the way some of these events have happened on the north side in particular.
Yeah, let me just follow up on that for a second. There's two little pieces of advice that we also are aware of. The reason that on our dashboard, it does indicate so many people approach on foot is because the victim doesn't see the car. We know that cars are involved in a lot more incidents than just approach on foot. We know that, but we can only go with what the data available to us tells us. So that's the piece of that. If you believe you're being followed, a rule of thumb in law enforcement is you take 2 right turns and then a left turn. If they're still behind you on that left turn, then you're being followed. So that is something to think about. And if you believe you're being followed, you can call 911. You know, don't be afraid to do that. You know, that's one of the things that, you know, in Chicago, we kind of wish that people would be more proactive about that, about when they really need something, obviously. But if you believe that you're being followed by another vehicle, definitely call 911.
Thank you. And yeah, just to get back to it, I want to mention that, you know, we have a lot of great people on the call tonight. I could see that we have questions being submitted from people in Ukrainian Village Neighborhood Association, Sheffield Neighbors, Wrightwood Neighbors, Greater Westtown Coalition, Streeterville SOAR, Streeterville Walks, River North Residents Association. You can see how many neighborhoods this touches in the second ward. And a lot of those people, those stakeholders are on the call tonight. As we wrap up here, can we go into detail real quick again about this sticker? You're doing a lot of education, you said, in jails. I think that's fantastically important to get this out there as something that people are aware of. Can you just mention real quick again how people can register their car for tracking permission?
Yeah, just from the chat row, there seems to be a lot of interest. People are asking how they can sign up, that people want to participate.
Okay, so what I will do is I will go back. I'm going to share my screen. You know, I hope this all works as planned.
We see it.
I think you are able to see this again. All right, so here's where we start again. You go to Google, and let me just activate this very quickly here. That's the sticker again. You go to Google, you type in cookcountysheriff.org. I always misspell sheriff, even though I work for the organization now. And then you go down to the bottom under community relations. You go down to carjacking tips and consent form. Click on that. That will take you to the consent form. You download the consent form in the language available to you that you're most comfortable with. And then this will pop up, and you just fill in these pieces here, all of the specific items. It's very, very simple. Again, at the bottom left, you see there witness. You don't have to worry about that. That is no longer necessary. The consent form that you'll be downloading will not have that. We also, again, very important. I cannot stress this enough. This is in the event that your vehicle has been unlawfully taken. We are not tracking this vehicle because you own it. And again, we've had a lot of folks call us and ask us about that. It's like, oh, well, I'm not going to do this because now you're going to know where I am at all times. That is not what we are doing here. This is only, and we are only going to track it through the manufacturer. The problem that we have here is that manufacturers are very reticent to tell us where the vehicles are after they've been stolen. So they're not telling us where they are when they haven't been stolen. We have to provide them not only with this, by the way, this particular consent form that we're putting out is designed so that if we don't have your permission immediately, maybe you were injured in the vehicular hijacking, this is a way for us to be able to go and track that vehicle using this affidavit, essentially, that says, yes, I'm giving law enforcement, the responding law enforcement agency, the ability to track this vehicle. And that's all that this is. Now, once you do that, You will then send it back. It says right here, once completed, please submit the form to ccso.cartrack@ccsheriff.org. Once that happens, then we will send you the stickers that I showed you earlier here. And then you can put those, we'll send you 2 stickers, depending on how many vehicles, it'll be 2 stickers per vehicle that we will send you. And they will be for both either your front or your back, either however you want to do it. If you have tinted back windows, you can you might want to put one on the front. If you don't, one on the back is suffice. They will actually approach the vehicle from behind mostly. So that's where we want them to see this particular sticker. Stickers are also available, by the way, in county facilities, county courthouses, at the court services desks, and at Cook County Sheriff's Police Stations.
And we'll put a link on how to obtain the stickers, and a link to the consent form will be in the next issue of the Second Word newsletter.
Yeah, and I want to just thank everybody for being part of this today. Before we wrap up with final comments, just thank you so much for all your work on sharing the data between all the different law enforcement agencies. We always appreciate that. A lot more seems to be getting done, especially with the task force. Alderman, did you have any final comments you wanted to leave the audience with tonight?
Yeah, as I said in my opening remarks, this is, the #1 policy challenge that we're facing right now, arguably outside of the COVID pandemic, which is connected to all of this, is, as the sheriff mentioned, there's some national trends that are driving a lot of this. We have to have this debate. It isn't always a comfortable debate, and there's a lot of disagreement about it. We have to talk about the root causes of social injustice that drive a lot of the crime. It needs to be a part of this conversation as well. It was beyond the scope of tonight's workshop, but these are all things that confront us as leaders and as stakeholders in this society. Someone had mentioned earlier in the comments, I was looking for guidance as to whether they should move out of Chicago or not. It breaks my heart every time someone asks me that question, and frankly, I get asked a lot. And I understand where it comes from. I understand the fear. But we've been through tough times as a city before. All I can say to that is, the decision to move or the decision to stay is a highly personal decision. I'm here, I'm committed, and my office is committed. The people that I work with on a daily basis, we're committed to stay and fight for our city and for our way of life. And I know the sheriff is as well, and I know Conn is as well. So we're delighted to have you on board. And again, Ro, congratulations on being a sworn law enforcement officer. We're delighted to have you in one of your, I would say this is probably one of your first major public roles since you completed your training. Am I correct there that you're out on the big stage now, which you certainly were used to in your former career?
Yeah, I mean, this has been our major project that we've been working on for the last year. And in December, we announced the vehicle tracking program. And this is all stuff that has come out of our work with the task force, with the assistance of the intelligence units and the Chicago Police Department. Illinois State Police and the FBI have also been a part of this with us. And this is what we've decided this is the direction that we're going to go.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for your commitment to serving and protecting, and to Sheriff Dart. Thank you as well. Your record of public service is beyond match. And I'm proud to have you as my friend, and I'm proud to have you as a colleague. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you, Sheriff Dart. We see you in the background there. We appreciate your time tonight. Conn, thank you so much as well. The rest of the panel, Alderman Hopkins, we appreciate you tonight as well. And special thanks to Jason Hernandez and Sophia Ansari for helping to set up tonight's webinar. As a reminder, tonight's webinar will be hosted on our website. We will also post a link to not only the webinar in our next newsletter, but also all this information about carjacking permissions, forms, stickers, a lot of things that we talked about tonight. We'll make it very easy for people to follow that through the Second Word newsletter. Again, that's all hosted through aldermanhopkins.com, our main website, where you can sign up for the newsletter or watch this and other webinars. So thank you, everybody, again. We appreciate your time tonight, and have a good night. Stay safe.
Yeah, thanks. Be safe, everyone.